Angie Setzer, goddess of grains. Angie, God, a lot has changed in 3 months since we last talked. I think we were talking about the bottom. Corn was bottoming then,
Yeah,
and
yeah. I think we had discussed that. I'd have to say we were one of the, I don't want to say one of the first ones. I never like to be like, oh, we nailed it, but we definitely had discussed a couple different times where we were really working to carve out that bottom in corn, and we for sure had. We definitely saw a nice rally, and now we kind of have exhausted some of that and are just kind of sitting here. I feel like in consolidation mode, maybe a little range bound, trying to figure out what comes next when it comes to South American production and what we see here in the US for new crop.
yeah, we were here, Angie. It was in August, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think
So,
so. Yeah.
so we're diverging here, and everyone was pretty depressed. And what a move! I mean,
Yeah.
it led the way, followed maybe by wheat and bringing up the rear. Well, I don't know if it's a rear anymore. That's pretty healthy consolidation in the beans
Yeah.
here. All right, so let's talk about the drama in the bean market. So the beans got real excited on their Chinese buy,
Hmm.
right? That kind of
Yeah.
lit it up for oh, they're coming back. And then
Yes.
I think a week or so ago, they went back to Brazil to buy their beans.
Well, it's not even, I mean, and seasonally they should. So, just to kind of point out, yeah, we had a little bit of excitement here the third week of January, right after the inauguration, where I think we kind of undid some of the biggest worries that we had when it came to President Trump and agricultural trade. I think a lot of the conversation had surprised some folks with the administration officials that he had tapped coming in and saying, yeah, hey, we'd already sorted out this deal. We'd already negotiated a resolution to the trade deal. We want to revisit phase one. And so there was a rumor not too long after this whole revisiting phase one deal, where we would, someone had said, or the cash trader, the conversation in cash trade, was that China had come in and was looking to purchase a couple 2 to 3 million metric tons of soybeans and a couple million metric tons of corn or whatever. We haven't really seen that come to fruition, but there was a thought that, hey, they're going to come in and throw us a bone here. And we saw a bit of a rally. On top of that, though, at the same time, we had seen South America turn dry. So we saw some issues start to develop in Argentina, some issues start to develop in southern Brazil. And, we basically took the crop size estimate in South America down. We were talking numbers of upwards of 250 million metric tons out of the whole of South America. That had
Yeah.
been 20 million metric tons higher than what traders were talking initially, 800 million bushels, give or take, a little less than that, but still. It was a big amount of beans that folks thought were going to come back into the market. It turned dry. We turned dry. They went away. We, kind of saw some excitement over China. We spiked. Now the weather has kind of switched back. Harvest is happening across much of South America. We haven't seen anything develop out of China. And here we sit waiting to see which direction we need to head next.
Yeah, I was reading about some type of disease. I know it's not blight, but it's affecting the wheat crop. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, I mean, you'll see, or there's winter kill. We have a conversation about winter kill, just about every year. I think that was probably where you saw wheat, really get a shot and take off higher. March wheat, front month wheat had traded right around that 5.25 area for quite some
Yeah,
time. And
but
then yeah,
but
go
isn't
ahead.
there a disease affecting the wheat crop?
No, the thing
I
is
read
about
about it.
wheat. What was it? Do you know? Was it stripe that
I
they were discussing or?
it may have been, but it was concerning,
Hmm.
especially with supply situations. So
Yes.
anyway, it's not my wheelhouse, but I do
No,
recall reading
yeah.
about it. Yeah,
Well, there were some pretty significant worries here a couple weeks ago. It was part of the reason that you saw the wheat market spike. You saw a recent run up in value in wheat. And there were some worries you'd see some winter kill. We are hearing some reports of different things as the wheat crop comes out of dormancy. The thing
Yeah.
that I'm going to say right now that we have to be careful of is we are going to see some pretty, and that's part of the reason they took the winter kill risk out of the market, is that we are going to see temperatures warm pretty decently here, and that will wake up the wheat crop. Part of the reason that the market, there was some real concern that the cold temperatures were going to hurt the crop. But if the
Yeah.
crop is in dormancy, which is what happens with winter wheat, you plant it in the fall, the weather turns cold, it basically goes to sleep until spring, and then once the temperature's warm, it wakes back up and starts growing again. And so the idea that we would have had winter kill a couple of weeks ago was a little questionable, simply because we were still in dormancy across a good portion of the country here.
Yeah.
Now we are coming out of it, and so yeah, you're right, Dale. The risk could come in that we could see this crop. It's not a disease; it's just caused by cold temperature. That's going to be something that you'll see happen more widespread.
Okay.
But if we do see stripe or something like that, like some type of fungus build in, which can happen when you have too much moisture and the temperatures warm really rapidly, that could be problematic early on as well, because with lower prices, the farmer is trying to determine what they're going to throw at the crop from an input standpoint. And so you could see some abandonment in wheat if the crop doesn't look good as we work
Yeah.
our way into the spring.
All right. Well, when you look at the weeklies of the three, just like the
Hmm.
daily look the best, corn looks the best. If I didn't know what the title was, I would look at this, where'd we bottom? 370. Call it a buck and a half. I'd be
Hmm.
buying a 50% pullback in corn.
Hmm.
Now at least you have a low to be wrong against. And this is the weekly moving average. It's a 50 week. So I would buy it there. Wheat, the weekly almost looks like it's vulnerable again unless we
Hmm.
reverse. And the weekly in beans looks pretty good. We get over 11 is a pretty important area.
Yeah.
We could be trading 13, 12 and a half back up here. So, yeah, I think there's some opportunity. What could cause a break would be risk off. If we get some continued risk off and a dollar rally because
Hmm.
of that, that may create a break for a buying opportunity.
I
Keep an
think
eye.
so. Yeah.
What do you think? When you're talking to your clients, uh, are you less hedged in the corn than other crops because of its performance?
We have been, I mean, yes, to a certain extent. With each one of my growers, it's kind of an individualized sort of conversation about, what they need to accomplish when it comes to cash flow, what they're looking for, what their targets are, in their mind. And so, we've had some differing circumstances on the farm. Cash flow has been exceptionally tight. Last year was pretty traumatic from an economic standpoint for the American farmer. You can look at the collapse in value, and a
Yeah,
lot of folks were caught off guard. We're dealing with a lot of recency bias, where it's like, okay, this happened last year, that's what's going to happen this year. And so you have
yeah,
seen the US farmer and the world farmer, the Chinese farmer is sold at a quicker pace than seen a year ago. The US farmer
yeah,
has liquidated a lot of their supplies. My growers now, we're kind of looking at how to maximize what we can out of our old crop supplies because of the aggressive farmer selling that we've seen. Now we have supply, and we want to, kind of compete with the commercials across the state here. But when it comes to new crop, yeah, I mean, it's one of those where you're towing a fine line. We did set our crop insurance price, so for farmers, they have a revenue floor that we can work off from. And so we have some corn that is hedged, not as much, you could say, as maybe we've seen in years past when the prices were higher. But it is more corn, more opportunities have been presented in the corn market, you could say, than in the bean market for sure. The wheat market, we did have a spike towards $7 late last fall that allowed us to get some stuff done early. And so that's provided us an ability to kind of sit here and just wait. And so
yeah.
that's
This
what
is
we're
a
doing for the most part.
when it turns, it's going to be big because this
It
is
turns quick. Yeah.
hell of a long basing period.
Yeah.
So it's a big base over seven. Then you're talking 9.
Mm.
Um, Let me ask you this: I've heard that Doge, in their efforts, has cuts have happened that have affected your industry, the agricultural industry, and that some people in the business, some farmers are upset about it. What is it that um, Doge did that's affecting the farmers?
Well, it's been resolved since for the most part, it sounds like. But there
Oh, okay.
was when they froze a lot of the spending programs, when we had
Yeah.
especially the Inflation Reduction Act tied spending programs.
Mm,
There were a handful of different or different things in there, different programs that the farmer could sign up for. Equip is one that was really based on conservation. It helps to cover the cost of a farmer, improving the energy and efficiency of their on-farm setup. An elevator or a grain bin and a dryer and all of that stuff takes a lot of electricity, and so there were some programs out there that allowed them to do that, programs that were tied to the climate smart agriculture, which Trump has really rolled back, but that's more minimal till, no till, specify or variable rate application of inputs and things like that. And so there were some farmers that had a chunk of cash that they were expecting, that had been limited or held back. There were some worries that we would see the economic disaster funds that had been passed in the last continuing resolution
yeah.
be held back, but now it appears that that's not the case. They say that they'll send all of those funds will be released here, and so much ado about nothing, I guess, for a minute there, but it was a little upsetting. We have seen some pretty significant cuts as well, reported across a good portion of like the USDA. Your offices, your field offices, the local, that is a little concerning. But at this point, I don't think anyone's really noticed what that means. But it is interesting, to think about. We saw Ag Secretary Rollins yesterday say that they're going to spend 500 million on biosecurity audits and things like that for these poultry barns. And I'm just wondering how we're going to staff that with the reduction in staff and some of these other things that we've seen, but they seem to they'll be able to figure it out, I would imagine, here soon.
How many years before egg prices come down?
I wouldn't be the least bit surprised to see them be lower by the middle part of next year or even the end of this year. You can replenish poultry flocks relatively quickly. The biggest thing we just got to figure out is the biosecurity side of things. Obviously, these
Yeah.
wild birds getting into some of these flocks and things causing issues. But I also think, if you Herbrooks, is one of the larger poultry egg laying operations in the state here. They supply a lot of the eggs to McDonald's and things like that. Um, and they're really pushing for the vaccine. He thinks
Okay.
that that's going to make a difference, and so I know Rollins yesterday was kind of hesitant. There was a lot of conversation about the back and forth on that. I think the USDA had canceled the contract with Moderna that Biden had set up. So there's some conversation that we really don't know how that whole entire resolution will look like. But I would imagine now that we have all of the brain, all of the brain power and the manpower, and are looking to allocate funds and maybe recognizing some of the ways that we could improve our biosecurity. Like we've got a local egg layer that they're spreading out their barns now instead of just having them in one location. You're going to see
Okay.
them all across the state. That way, if you have one get hit, you're not wiping out six full of, a million birds each or whatever.
Okay.
And so it's definitely, I think you'll see some pretty significant changes. I wouldn't be the least bit surprised to see egg prices down. I said the end of the year. It wouldn't even surprise me to see it by fall.
Okay. So, yeah, Doge had initially cut a few people that were working on the vaccine. Is the vaccine project still under ready to go?
I
And
believe so. Yeah, I think there's a couple different that they've been working on, and I'm talking to a certain extent out of my wheelhouse here, so I better be careful. But it's one of those things where I think there's two different potential vaccines, or at the very
mm,
least, I know they want to slow roll the rollout, which I think makes sense. I think there's
yeah,
still a lot of um, you know
risk.
Yeah, and COVID-19, the vaccine there has been brought up a couple different times and the fast rollout and yada yada yada. So
Yeah,
I think there'll be a bit of a slower roll, but I do think that that'll be something that we need to see. There's a lot of conversation too. One of the biggest problems that we have with this whole bird flu sort of containment plan is that we're not allowing for any sort of natural immunity to occur. You're basically just wiping out if birds get sick, you wipe out the whole entire flock. And so there was a conversation about trying to figure out a better way to do that as well. And so
yeah.
yeah, I think we're working on it. I think we've established what the problem is. I don't think it's an ASF thing. Like, there was an article at bird flu, looked to China's pork to see why the bird flu or the egg situation is as it is. ASF was very different. And China's pig or pork production was very different.
Oh, yeah,
7 years ago they had a lot of
yeah,
backyard herds and things like that. Now they
yeah.
they have the
They had to
biosecurity.
cull their, yeah, they had to
Yes.
cull all that pork.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
had a lot of, you had African swine fever that tore through the country. And so
Oh,
it's not the same, though it echoes, and I do think we will see a lot of these farms now, especially with the big ones that have getting it. The Herbrooks of the world will definitely, if you lose several million birds at once, for us it just impacted our local cash market and the egg price. We're paying double versus a year ago, though I won't complain because you can still buy 2 dozen for $9. Like it's
yeah, that's
uh
nice.
yeah, it's not too bad, but
That's like $25 here.
yeah. Oh golly, I can't even imagine. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
a buck and egg almost.
it's
Yeah,
crazy to me. Yeah.
yeah. So when I'm
But
making breakfast, I go $1, $2.
get to add them up.
Anyway, yeah.
But
Um.
uh but yeah, so I
Anyway,
think we'll be able to work through it here. As we look ahead, we just gotta keep on keeping on with it, and I think we're understanding a lot about it and so yeah, I'm optimistic.
okay. Well, uh, uh, RFK Jr.'s human health. So it's being kind of anti-vax. It's the Department of Agriculture that's making this call.
Yes, this
Um,
one will be the Department of Ag.
have they set up any facilities to take care of chickens that get autism from being vaccinated?
Not yet,
Yeah,
but we hope.
ever met an autistic chicken?
That's like,
Uh,
oh, I'm sure they
I,
take all kinds, right?
ADD or whatever. Anyway, Angie, your time, I believe, has come. We just need the dollar to break. And I wanted to ask you this. Let's wrap it on this. It's been, we have La Nina. La Nina definitely has acted in character here in California, with the fires, and we've only had one good storm. Okay,
Oh yeah.
the whole winter. And I remember La Nina years when it was dry out west, that into later in the summer, the growing season, that there could be weather problems like too dry
Hmm.
because of La Nina. Are people talking about that in La Nina as being a possible problem before harvest?
Yes. Oh yeah. I think it's on our radar. I think a lot of times we tend to we tend to cynically look at long-term outlooks. You know what I mean? One of those things where it's like, okay, yeah, you'll hear farmers say they can't forecast tomorrow.
Yeah,
Like, what do they mean? But you are seeing a lot of long-term extended forecasts that are pointing towards pretty decent dryness building in
yeah,
as you work your way into the summer, June, July, and August with some above
yeah,
normal temperatures in the Western Corn Belt. The biggest thing to look at right now that could have a huge impact on is we're going into the season exceptionally dry. Now, the best time to have a drought's obviously the winter, but we really have to watch that because we don't have the reserves to really handle an extreme drought, especially across some larger producing areas of like South Dakota, Nebraska, parts of
yeah,
Iowa. And so it's definitely going to be something to watch. We could probably guess that the USDA may struggle to reach the target yield that they released this morning, simply because it would be a new record. And so, yeah, we'll be definitely watching. Also, the La Nina weather pattern has a huge influence on what happens in Brazil during their second crop production period.
okay,
And so now we'll be spending the next 8 weeks basically watching Brazil really closely. There's some drought conditions that are developing down that way too. NDVI across much of Mato Grosso, where they're growing the second crop corn, is one of the worst, pretty terrible, far below average. And so there's a lot of things to be paying attention to. Definitely not anything to sleep on, even if we have some issues with Trump. He came out and just clarified here a minute ago. The Mexico-Canada tariffs are still set to go on March 4th. Reciprocal tariff is April 2nd. And he said he just added a new China tariff too, 10% on March 4th. So
Yeah.
just for
So
good
there's a lot of
measure.
things out there, and one of our attendees, Galaxy, said that a lot of contracts were canceled. USAID did a lot of buying of U.S. grain.
Yes. Yeah, you had there was a lot of buying there of US grain, different chunks of things. Now they weren't obligated to buy US grain though. So there were a lot of purchasing of grain that may have been made out of Brazil or somewhere else. Not an argument on any of it. It's just, if US grain was more expensive, they were given the option to source supplies elsewhere. And, the biggest thing I
Well,
see
they
with that.
probably didn't buy it anywhere because they didn't have the funds after it was
Yeah.
killed, right? Right?
Yeah, you're helping, kind of negotiate trades amongst private companies, really, more than
Yeah.
anything in that regard. But it'll be interesting to see how that all plays out, especially when it comes to, USAID was really behind a lot of the rebuild that was taking place with um Ukrainian infrastructure that had been hit, export
Yeah.
infrastructure,
Yeah.
and grain infrastructure. There was, a lot of programs for adding bins on farms and things like that to try to keep the grain out of the pipeline when we weren't sure how we would be able to, export it or whatever.
Right.
And so, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how all of these things play out. There's so many different moving pieces anymore. And you really can't tell what's going to have the butterfly effect in the whole entire sector until you get months down the road and all of a sudden you're like, oh, okay, well, it turns out Indonesia going to B40 was a big deal. Or, there's just so many different things that are going on. Trade gets a lot of the attention, the tariffs and all of that gets the big amount of attention, but
Yeah.
there's so many other moving pieces and we haven't even got into the growing season yet.
Yeah. Yeah. He's saying grain is rotting in some elevators and storage, and the peanut
Interesting.
farmers in Georgia are getting hit hard as well.
Yeah,
All I could say is, guys, you can't eat gold. All right.
it's true.
All right. So, if you're emotional about what happens to the dollar and the price of gold, the price of energy, there's not a more emotional market and important market than the grain market. So they're good technical markets too. I started trading them a long time ago. All right. So they're good technical markets. So I'll be looking at corn if we get down, we get a pullback here to 440. And Angie is a great source if you guys want to, if you start trading grains and you want, uh, good info, to find the right day for your entry based upon the news. Hard to do it all yourself. So Angie curates all that information for you. So check her out at consuag.net, and you can follow her on X at the Goddess of Grains. So,
Yes, sir.
all right. Well, Angie, I hope this is a great 2025 for you and your family and your colleagues and the guys who are out there, uh, you know, trying to feed America. So,
Me too. I'm
all right.
optimistic. I think this year will be much better than last.
Okay. Well, I like it. Let's end it on this note of hopefulness. And remember, don't just count your bushels, count your blessings. All
Yes,
right.
sir.
All right. So, Angie, great talking to you. Angie Setzer, everyone follow her. There's your grain gal and they're going to be important markets. All right. So that's a wrap. Thanks again, Angie. I'll be talking to you in May. We'll
Don't look
see how,
forward to it.
yeah,
Yeah.
we'll see how hot it's getting out there in May, in June.
Yeah,
So,
I'm ready. I'm ready for some heat and some sun, I can tell you
uh,
that. So
okay.
bring on
I,
May. Thank you.
I remember the Midwest winters. Yeah. So that's a wrap, everyone. Have a great day. We'll end it tomorrow on TGIF. You could join the team in 16 minutes on the Morning Edge. Find a community. You know, I saw this saying that if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, it takes more than you. It takes a community. It takes, a partner. So, learn to collaborate and find a community so you could go far, not just fast. Fast, doesn't work in trading anyway, because you have to be patient. And that's a wrap for me, everyone. Hope you have a good trading day. See everyone tomorrow. Adios.
Hey traders, this is Blake Morrow with Forex Analytics. Thanks for stopping by our YouTube channel. Don't forget to like these videos, share them, and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss any of the content that we provide here for free. Thanks for stopping by. I'll see you in the next video.